The sun was just starting to rise over the flat fields of Waco, Texas, casting a warm amber glow through the blinds of my modest home. I had always loved mornings. They gave me time to think, to sip my tea, and to prepare for whatever the day might bring. That day, however, brought something I could never have prepared for. I had just finished washing the dishes when I noticed a leak under the kitchen sink. It had been dripping for days, but I had been putting it off. I crouched down, my knees aching as usual, and reached under the sink. The next few seconds are a blur. My foot slipped on a slick patch of tile, and before I could steady myself, I was flat on the floor, my leg twisted underneath me at an unnatural angle. The pain shot through me like lightning. I screamed, louder than I ever had in my life, but there was no one there to hear me. I lay there for what felt like hours, frozen in pain, unable to move. When I finally managed to crawl to the phone and call for help, I was already going into shock. At the hospital, the doctor's words hit harder than the fall itself. "Mrs. Maynard, the fracture is severe. We'll need to operate if you want to walk again." I remember blinking at him, numb. "And how much will that cost?" He hesitated. Then he said the number. I forgot how to breathe. As a retired schoolteacher living on a fixed pension, that amount was simply out of reach. I had savings, but they had been drained 2 years ago when my car broke down, and I had to help my son Ethan and his wife Katie with a down payment on their house. Still, I held on to hope. Ethan had always been a good boy, raised with values. I had given him everything I had, and I believed with all my heart that he would be there for me now. But I would soon learn that belief does not always lead to truth. And that was only the beginning. It had been 3 days since the doctor delivered the news, and I was lying in a hospital bed, staring at the cracks in the ceiling tiles. Nurses came and went, bringing trays of bland food and changing 4 drips, but the one person I needed, my son Ethan, had not come. I called him the day after the fall. My hands were trembling as I dialed his number. I remembered every lullaby I had sung to him as a baby, every scraped knee I had bandaged, every late-night study session I had stayed up for when he was preparing for exams. The phone rang 5 times before it went to voicemail. "Hi, Ethan. It's Mum. I'm in the hospital. I fell. They say I need surgery. It's serious. Please call me back." I waited all day. No response. Not even a text. On the second day, I called again. Katie answered. "Oh, hey, Linda," she said, her tone casual and rushed. "Ethan's super busy at work. He'll call you when he can, okay?" Before I could reply, the line went dead. Busy? My heart ached. I had never asked for much. I was never the kind of mother who guilt-tripped her children or demanded to be the center of their lives. I had given freely, never keeping score. And yet, when I needed him the most, he was nowhere to be found. By the 3rd day, my hope began to crumble. I turned to the hospital social worker, desperate for options. She offered leaflets about government assistance, but there was a long waiting list and piles of paperwork. I couldn't wait months. The doctors said the longer I delayed surgery, the slimmer my chances of full recovery. That evening, as the sky outside turned from golden to deep blue, the door finally creaked open. I looked up with hope in my chest. But it wasn't Ethan. It was my neighbor, Donna. She came bearing flowers and kind words, but I couldn't hide the disappointment in my eyes. "I thought he'd be here by now," Donna said gently, patting my hand. "So did I whispered, the lump in my throat making it hard to speak. That night, I lay awake, replaying every memory of Ethan growing up. The school plays, the birthdays, the tears and triumphs. I had raised him with love, but something had gone wrong along the way. Something I could no longer deny. The following morning, the nurse handed me a printed form, a detailed estimate of the surgery. I had to look away. My chest tightened. It was more than what the doctor had initially said. I would need not only the operation, but also weeks of rehabilitation, medication, mobility aids, and home adjustments. The total was astronomical. I was still staring at the paper when the nurse spoke softly. "Do you have family who can help cover the costs?" I gave a weak smile. I thought I did. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Ethan at last. I fumbled to open it with trembling fingers, heart hammering in my chest. Mum, sorry for the delay. Been crazy at work. Katie's mom is going through something too. She's not been happy with herself lately. We're helping her feel better. Hope you're doing okay. We'll visit soon. The word struck me like a cold slap. His mother-in-law? I reread the message 3 times. Helping her feel better? What did that even mean? That evening, Donna returned. She had brought me a home-cooked meal in a thermos and sat by my bed as I picked at the food. You don't look so good, love, she said gently. I got a message from Ethan, I muttered. Donna raised an eyebrow. And I handed her the phone. She read it and frowned. Oh no, she sighed. Katie's mom? What are they doing for her? I looked away. Something about helping her feel better. Donna hesitated. You know, Katie's mom got a facelift last week. Sandra mentioned it at book club. Said she looked 10 years younger. I froze. The air left my lungs. A facelift. Donna nodded slowly. I clenched the blanket in my lap, my fingers trembling. While I was lying in a hospital bed, unable to walk, my son was paying for his mother-in-law to erase wrinkles. The next morning, I asked the hospital to print Ethan's emergency contact information and verify the billing details. I needed to see something for myself. And sure enough, Ethan had listed me under secondary emergency, not primary. Katie was listed first. And there, in the billing history, under next of kin contributions, was a note. Patient unable to pay. No financial assistance from family confirmed. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I thought it couldn't get worse. But I was wrong. 3 days later, Ethan finally arrived. I heard his voice before I saw him, joking with a nurse in the corridor. It was the kind of laugh he used when he was proud of himself. He entered my room with Katie in tow. She wore oversized sunglasses and held a designer handbag. Ethan carried nothing but his phone. I noticed he didn't even glance at the monitor next to my bed. Mom, he said brightly. You're looking better. Katie smiled, though her lips barely moved. Her face looked tight, unnaturally smooth. I could not stop staring. I wasn't expecting you, I said flatly. Ethan chuckled. We thought we'd surprise you. Katie had her consultation nearby, so we dropped in. Consultation? I asked. Katie shifted uncomfortably. Follow up, she corrected. Nothing's serious. My hands gripped the blanket again. I forced a polite smile. They stayed for under 10 minutes. Ethan asked no questions about the surgery, the pain, or the cost. Katie complimented the flowers Donna had brought. Then they left, promising to come back soon. As soon as the door shut, I broke down. I had always made excuses for Ethan. When he forgot birthdays, when he never helped after Frank passed away, when he left me alone on holidays, I had told myself he was busy, overwhelmed, young. But now I saw the truth. He had grown into a man who believed kindness was optional. And I had raised him that way, without meaning to. The next day, Donna returned with a red folder tucked under her arm. You're going to think I'm mad, she said as she handed it to me. Inside were pages of information, charity organizations, legal aid offices, and something else that caught my eye. What's this? I asked. Veterans Assistance Program, she said. You said Frank served, didn't you? There's a support fund for spouses. My breath caught. I had forgotten. Frank had served when he was younger. I had never used any of his veteran benefits. For the first time in weeks, a spark of hope flickered. Maybe I didn't need Ethan's help. Maybe I never truly had it in the first place. That evening, I asked Donna to bring my old box of papers from the attic. It had been years since I last opened it. Dust clung to the edges, and inside were scattered photographs, letters, and Frank's military documents. I read through them slowly, each line filled with memories. There was his enlistment letter, photos of him in uniform, and finally, a certificate confirming his honorable discharge. It felt like holding a piece of him again. One paper in particular stood out, a leaflet explaining the spouse benefits. I had seen it before, but never paid attention. Now it felt like a map. Donna sat beside me, her eyes scanning the same lines. We can call them tomorrow, she said. I'll help you with the paperwork. I nodded, unable to speak. Tears welled in my eyes. Not because of the documents, but because of her. She had no obligation to me. We weren't even close neighbors before my fall. But somehow she saw me. The next morning we made the call. A kind woman named Clara answered and walked us through the process. She said I was eligible for assistance not only with medical costs, but also for transportation, a mobility device, and home care support. It felt like someone had lifted a mountain off my chest. I had spent weeks waiting for Ethan to do the right thing. But now, without him, my life was beginning to shift. And I was the one doing it. Later that afternoon, as I rested, Ethan called. For once, it wasn't a text. His voice was cheerful.
Mom.
Good news. Katie's surgery went amazing. She's thrilled. We're thinking of a little trip to Cabo next month to celebrate. You should see her face now. She looks incredible. I bit my lip. Ethan, I said gently, I'm applying for financial assistance. For my surgery, my care. It's all happening without your help. There was a pause. Then he laughed. Mom, don't be dramatic. You should have just waited. I would have sent something when we had more breathing room. More breathing room? I asked. You flew to California and paid thousands for cosmetic work. He grew defensive. It's not the same. Katie needed it. It's her self-esteem. You've always been so strong. I thought you'd manage. That line, I thought you'd manage, hit me like a slap. So that was it. He didn't help because he assumed I didn't need him. But that wasn't strength. That was abandonment. Weeks passed, and I never heard from Ethan again. I followed through with the paperwork and soon received a letter confirming my eligibility. I would be scheduled for surgery within 2 months. For the first time in years, there was a light flickering at the end of a very long tunnel. Donna drove me to my pre-operative appointments. She even rearranged her work shifts to be there when I needed her. Meanwhile, I heard nothing from my son. Not a call, not a message, not even a card. Then one morning, something unexpected arrived in the post. It was an envelope with Ethan's handwriting. Inside was a check. $200. No note. No apology. Just the check. I sat in silence, staring at it. $200. After everything. Donna picked it up from the table and looked at me. Is this a joke? I shrugged, swallowing the lump in my throat. Maybe it's what he thinks I'm worth. I didn't cash the check. I couldn't. It felt more like an insult than a gift. Later that day, Donna called her cousin, who was a nurse. She explained my situation, and by evening they had arranged for someone to come by twice a week after my operation, a small team of local volunteers who cared for the elderly. I was overwhelmed. Strangers were doing more for me than my own flesh and blood. That night, I placed the check in an envelope of my own, along with a note. Keep this for your next trip. I'm finally learning how to stand without you. I mailed it the next morning. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. The morning of the operation, I felt a calm I couldn't explain. Donna arrived early, helped me get ready, and waited with me through the long check-in process. When the nurses wheeled me into the theater, I gave her a small wave, not knowing what would come next. Hours later, I woke up groggy and sore, but alive. The doctors said the procedure went well. My spine had been stabilized, and with proper rehab, I would walk again. I cried. Quiet tears of relief. Not because of the success of the surgery, but because I had made it here. Without begging. Without my son. Without being anyone's burden. Recovery was slow. Painful. There were days I couldn't get out of bed, when I wondered if I'd made a mistake. But Donna never left my side. She cooked, cleaned, and reminded me every day that I was strong. 3 weeks after the surgery, I took my first step. It was clumsy and trembling, and I nearly collapsed, but Donna caught me. You're walking, Judith, she said, eyes full of tears. I laughed through the pain. Feels like flying. Word spread around the neighborhood. Old friends began stopping by. One even brought a casserole. I hadn't seen them in years. They thought I had vanished. But now I was coming back. Then one evening, a message came through. From Ethan. Hey, Mum. Katie and I are back from Cabo. Thought we'd stop by sometime. Bring dinner. Maybe even stay the night if there's room. I stared at the message. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a casual, "We're dropping in." I didn't reply. I no longer needed to. The knock on the door came on a Sunday afternoon. Donna and I were setting the table for dinner. Roast chicken, greens, and mashed potatoes. I had cooked it myself, slowly, from my walker. Each step in the process felt like reclaiming a part of me I had lost. I opened the door. There they were. Ethan in designer sunglasses, Katie with a fresh tan and perfect white teeth. "Mum," Ethan said, acting as though no time had passed. "Smells amazing in here." Katie leaned in and gave me an air kiss. "We brought wine. Thought we'd celebrate your new legs." I smiled, just barely. "Come in." They walked in, looking around as though they were visiting a stranger's house. Donna glanced at me from the kitchen and raised an eyebrow. I gave her a slight nod. We were doing this for one night. We sat down at the table. I watched Ethan take a seat at the head, like it was still his right. The conversation was light, full of stories about their holiday, their hotel suite, the food they ate. I listened, silent, as though I were invisible. Then Ethan glanced at the hall and said, "Still using the walker, huh? Thought the surgery would fix that." I placed my fork down. "The surgery saved me, and I'll walk on my own soon enough." Katie raised her glass. "To science, then." Donna coughed softly. "To real family." They laughed awkwardly. Ethan didn't respond, but I saw it. The brief flash of confusion on his face. He was no longer the center of the room. And he knew it. After dinner, I stepped out onto the porch for air. The night was quiet, save for the distant hum of a neighbor's radio and the soft creak of the wooden floor beneath my walker. Ethan followed me out. I didn't ask him to. He stood there for a moment, hands in his pockets, pretending to admire the sky. "You've changed, Mum." "I've healed," I replied. He nodded slowly. "I know I should have done more, helped more, but things got complicated." I said nothing. I paid for Katie's mom's surgery because, well, Katie insisted, and it just seemed easier. Easier than helping your own mother walk again? His shoulders tensed. "You don't understand what it's like. Katie's family expects things." So did I, Ethan. I expected my son to care. He looked at me then. Really looked. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, he asked, "Can we fix this?" I took a deep breath, the night air crisp against my throat. Fixing something requires both hands working together. Yours were busy with someone else's needs. He swallowed hard. "I'm not angry anymore, Ethan," I continued. "But I've learned something these past few months. I matter, even if I'm not anyone's priority." He looked down at his shoes, then turned back toward the door. "Katie's waiting. We should go." I didn't stop him. The house was quiet after they left. Too quiet. I sat on the sofa, the warmth from dinner lingering in the air, but my heart felt oddly light. Donna came and sat beside me. "You all right?" I nodded. "I think so." She held out a photo she'd taken earlier. It was of me, standing at the kitchen counter, stirring the pot with one hand while steadying myself with the walker. A small, tired smile on my face. "You're stronger than anyone I know," she said softly. I looked at the picture, and for the first time in a long time, I saw myself not as someone broken, but as someone who had rebuilt. "I don't think Ethan will be back," I murmured. Donna shrugged. "Maybe not. But you've got me. And we've got each other." In the following weeks, things changed in little ways. I gave away the expensive china I had saved for Ethan's family. I started using the dining room for friends from church. Donna and I began hosting Sunday dinners for neighbors and anyone who needed company. We weren't loud. We weren't flashy. But the laughter that filled the house felt real. One morning, I walked 3 steps without my walker. Donna clapped like I had won gold at the Olympics. And in my heart I did. My son had turned away from me at my lowest. But I had found something better. Not the family I had imagined, but the one I had chosen.